Warning. This program contains frank and mature discussions intended to educate and advocate on the subjects of sexuality, sex, and gender and body positivity. Due to the nature of the topics being discussed, this may include subject matter and language that some may find offensive. This program is intended for adults only. If you are under the age of 18, if such material offends you, or if it is illegal to view such material in your community, please exit now.
Brown chicken, brown cow. 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 This is fun. Brown chicken, brown cow. Brown chicken, brown cow. Welcome everybody to Brown Chicken, Brown Cow. I am so excited with this interview today.
I'm doing my really happy dance today, so we're really excited here in the studio.
And who's happy dancing?
Oh, it's Laura.
Miss Laura is here with me, actually recording and helping me out today to interview the founder, Ayo, from
Jewrotica.
There you go. See, I pointed to you, and then you got the point.
I know, it took me a moment. I'm sorry. So it's a pretty exciting organization.
Oh yeah.
We're in our month of spirituality, so we're pretty excited to talk to a lot of people.
Oh yeah, and starting off is Ayo, and I've had a little chance to talk to her. Mm-hmm. They are actually having a festival going on over there right now in the Jewish holiday process, and we're going to ask her a little bit about that because that sounds amazing. So I want to learn a little bit about that. We're going to learn more about Jewrotica, this amazing website. Because it's really blending, the religious aspect and the sexuality to create something that's really, really sex positive.
Yeah, I'm pretty interested to hear what they do.
And we have other things we're going to talk about as well.
Lots of things.
Lots of things. All the things. All things. You want to bring her in?
Yeah, that sounds good. Hey, Ayo, are you there?
Hey, Laura. Yeah. Hey, Monkey. I'm here.
Yay! Technology works.
Woohoo!
What? Because if the listeners don't know, Ayo is all the way over in Israel right now.
Yeah.
True that. Yeah, talking to you guys from Jerusalem. You should all come visit.
That's amazing. So you said that there's a festival going on right now. Can you describe what this festival is a little bit?
Yeah, this is the best time of year in Israel. It's called Sukkot. It's the harvest festival. And if you imagine an entire country being in block party mode, that's what's going on. We literally move out into huts and we live in them, and everyone is just jamming music and dancing, and strangers invite you into their literal hut to break bread with them and eat and drink and be merry. It's kind of awesome.
It sounds awesome. The closest thing I could probably relate it to would be like Burning Man here in the States, and it with the music and the huts and the friendship.
Yeah, I mean, I would say a little less nudity because it's in Jerusalem, but otherwise, I see the similarity.
Yeah. You want to start?
So, can you kind of introduce yourself a little? I know you've lived outside of Jerusalem before. And maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and Jewrotica.org.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born and raised on the East Coast of the United States in New Jersey in a very Orthodox Jewish community, which means very religiously devout. And gosh, where to start, where to focus? I don't know. I was raised in a very conservative community, passionate about my Judaism. My background is as a Jewish educator, but also as an educator on healthy relationships and sexuality. And growing up, the extent of the sex education in the Jewish framework that I was in was we would learn about something called a mikvah, which is a Jewish ritual bath, which is to say there pretty much wasn't any education. And as I ventured out into the world and studied human sexuality in university and things like that, I realized that there was just a profound lack of education and discussion in the religious community about sex. And then conversely, secular Jews didn't think that Judaism had anything to offer their relationships and their sexuality of value. And so there's a lot to kind of what Jewrotica is and how it was founded, but part of it was to create a bridge to kind of bring sex positivity back into Judaism and to bring Judaism back into the more secular, sex positive world.
So that's kind of an interesting topic. So I honestly will admit I don't know a ton about Judaism. So what? I mean, I've heard you say, you didn't really have a lot of sex education, but what is kind of the Jewish perspective, like in general, from like a traditional standpoint, on sexuality or other gender-related issues?
Okay, so great question, Laura. And the best way to answer it, I guess, is this slogan that I coined for Jewrotica, which is, I believe in original mitzvah. And a mitzvah is like a commandment. And as opposed to original sin. So there's 613 commandments in the Bible. And the very first one, the original mitzvah, is pru urvu, which is Hebrew for be fruitful and multiply. The first commandment in the Bible is have sex. So we shouldn't have all this hang up and this, negativity and shame. However, most of the Jewish community lived in the Christian diaspora for the past, I don't know how many hundreds of years, and absorbed a lot of the kind of sex negative messaging from that. And so one of the central Jewish values is about modesty, but modesty became a silence around sexuality. And silence is a breeding ground for shame and ignorance and embarrassment. And so theoretically, in Judaism, not only is sex considered this positive, incredible act, but not just sex for procreation, also sex for pleasure. Like every Jewish couple who gets married has a ketubah, which is a Jewish wedding document. And part of what the husband contractually signs to provide for his wife is not just reproduction, but sexual pleasure. Like there's even Talmudic stories and discussions about, depending on what profession the husband is, how many times a day, a week, a month, a year he's obligated to pleasure his wife.
Whoa.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
That
it's a far cry from the culture we have these days.
That's beautiful and amazing all at the same time. I'm like, wow. Does that make noise here? Yeah. Wow. Okay. So I think actually you answered my next question. So I'm going to move on to my next question after that. How did you come up with like Jewrotica and its name and its idea behind that and all that? Now, you might have already kind of answered that a little bit, but how did you come up with Jewrotica?
The Jewish community, we are just so organized about everything. We have our own schools and synagogues and conferences and books and really everything. And the one thing that we did not have was erotica, or kind of Jewish bodies of erotic literature. And my thought is just, we can talk the talk of being a sex positive religion, but if we're not walking the walk, if we're not setting examples for what does healthy positive sexuality look like with Jewish vocabulary and Jewish values, then what sort of double message does that send? And so if I'm brutally honest, one of the first impetuses for Jewrotica, the New York Times reported, I believe it was in spring 2012, that 50 Shades of Grey first became popular in the Orthodox Jewish community in Washington Heights, New York. And not to knock any books, anything, but I was just like, really? Like, really? And if we're reading that, then like, we can do better. Like, why not create our own body of literature? And so I was at this summit in Jerusalem for social innovators and entrepreneurs, and they encouraged us to throw any idea that we had into this idea competition. And I'm telling you, I spent hours coming up with all of these elaborate startups and social ventures. And about 3 a.m, I was like, Jewish erotica, that would be funny. And I tossed it into this idea tank, and it started out jewisherotica.org. By 4 a.m, I had shortened it to Jewrotica, and the idea was born from there.
Awesome. I feel like it's a really catchy name, actually.
Well, it rolls off the tongue. It's nice.
It does. It rolls off the tongue really easily. You like giggle a little because you're like, Jewrotica. Tee-hee.
What's that?
No, it's fun. Have you guys seen the logo?
Yeah, that was actually my next question. I understand it has a bit of a deeper meaning. Can you tell us and our listeners about it?
For sure. So the Jewrotica logo, it's a silhouette. It's of a guy and a girl, and it's an Adam and Eve silhouette. But instead of fig leaves over their privates, it's Stars of David. It's Jewish stars. And yes, it's edgy, and yes, it's meant to like excite, intrigue, and maybe a little bit piss people off. But the deeper meaning is basically, like I was saying before, in Judaism, we don't believe in original sin. We don't believe in this like Eve tempted Adam and therefore we're all doomed and et cetera, et cetera. And so by using the silhouettes of Adam and Eve and having the Jewish star there, it just beckons this question of, within a Jewish framework, are we to be embarrassed of our sexuality or are we not? Like that fig leaf, that sense of realizing they were naked in the Garden of Eden and covering up. Are we using our Judaism to kind of masquerade and cover up some sort of shame and embarrassment? And, you know, I know that we haven't gotten to what Jewrotica actually does, but I'll just kind of get a little bit ahead of ourselves and share that it has been so incredibly therapeutic. We have like, you know, ultra Orthodox mothers of 10 who write for Jewrotica under pen names, of course. But for them, it's just this catharsis of being able to fully express themselves in their Jewish identity in a sex positive way.
No, it sounds fabulous. I know, like, as a 16-year-old Catholic girl, I had a lot of internal struggles about, like, the rules of the church and things that you're supposed to be ashamed of or not do. I went to a lot of confession. That was the only solution. I was like, I'm just terrible.
And now look at you on a sex-positive podcast.
I know.
What's that about?
I believe you dragged me here.
Yay for Monkey!
Yay! But, you know, I think any culture, any society, there's going to be somewhat of a disconnect between the values and the actual culture. I don't know, maybe in your Catholic upbringing, they were one and the same. But like I was saying, in Judaism, you have this original idea that seems much more liberal and progressive with sexuality.
Yeah.
And the reality is just really a much more conservative one, you know, less the joke in Jewish circles, which will probably fall totally flat for your audience, is, you know, lest it lead to mixed dancing, because in our circles, men and women aren't even allowed to dance with one another. So the joke is like, you know, like premarital sex or sex ed, lest it lead to mixed dancing, as if that would be like the craziest thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's see here. There's a lot more to cover in the first segment on Jewrotica, so I want to find out a little bit more about that.
Maybe we can take a quick break and hear from our sponsors a little bit, and then we can really dive into that in depth.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll be right back after these words from our sponsors. This is Monkey saying, you know, wrap that stump before you hump. Here we go.
Wrap that stump before you hump.
You're welcome. Hi guys, it's Sean Monkey McEnany from Brown Chicken Brown Cow. You know what I suggest? I suggest you go to luckybloke.com. Why? Because you can order your condoms online every month. Let's say you have multiple lovers that require different types of condoms, small, medium, large. You don't have to go to the store and buy all these different condoms. You can actually order them from Lucky Bloke. Let's say you have a lover that's latex sensitive. You can get latex-free condoms in that same package with everything else. It is a fantastic program. It is a monthly service. You need to go to luckybloke.com and tell them Monkey sent you. Trust me, they know who I am. Welcome back. This is Sean Monkey McEnany, and I'm sitting here with the lovely Miss Laura. She's
Hello. Sorry,
I'm
I'm over here just making faces at people. I sometimes forget that you can't see what I'm doing on a podcast because it's only an audio recording.
That's fantastic. Well, we also have Ayo and Oppenheimer, and she said her name goes on and on and on. So
maybe they'll make a song about it one day.
It's almost a song by itself. It's a very beautiful name. So Ayo. We have, like I said, before the break, we were talking about Jewrotica, and we want to get a little bit deeper into that, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so it sounds like we've kind of perused your website, and it seems like you're blending religion and sexuality and some social issues in there with a lot of content on there. Can you kind of tell us a little bit about your website and what that online community is?
For sure. So Jewrotica is a hub for Jewish sexual expression. And what that means is that anything that has to do with the intersection of Judaism, Jewish religion, Jewish tradition, Jewish culture, values with sex, sexuality, healthy relationships, gender identity, consent issues, erotica, any of those things, that's what we cover. And so it started out in 2012 as an online community. And we publish all types of content, from poetry to essays, articles, sex ed. We even have a weekly Bible commentary on the weekly Torah portion, the Parsha, that's called Double Mitzvah, which comments on the weekly Bible portion as it relates to relationships and sexuality. And then maybe about a year after we launched the website, we said, wow, an online community is powerful. And we have so many people who are reaching out to us, who are writing to us. But there's something even more powerful about getting people together face to face to tackle these issues. So we developed about 5 unique workshops. Some of them are more sex ed focused, like Kedoshim Tihiyu. That's the Hebrew verse for, be sanctified, be holy, sex ed 101 Jewish style. There's workshops that are kind of more learning about the Jewish traditional elements. So there's sex in the Jewish tradition, which is so much fun. It delves into, this is going to sound lame, but I'm telling you, you have to experience it yourself. It's like the story of Joseph being seduced by Potiphar's wife, and then like Tamar getting it on with her father-in-law Judah, and Delilah seducing Samson before betraying him to the enemies. We take all of these old school Bible stories and we learn them through the context of modern day relationships, power dynamics, consent issues, role play, all of those things. And then perhaps our kind of edgiest, our sauciest workshop, it's called An Evening of Jewrotica, Bedside Reading. And that's kind of like the moth storytelling meets slam poetry. We have a master and mistress of confessions, and it's live readings through the night. And that's just a good old time.
I bet.
It sounds great.
So you have these things happening. Where are they at?
All over. I mean, I used to be based in Austin, Texas, and so I would travel around North America. The website itself, we have people who contribute from all over the world. The workshops we've done a few in California, in New York, in Texas. Now I'm in Jerusalem, so here. But every now and then I fly back. Usually once a year I fly back to North America, and I do a lot of programming there. So this past year I was in San Diego, and we did a big program in Southern California. And, I used to live in North America. I relocated to Israel. So I am slightly less available for the workshops than I used to. But we get maybe 5-6 events going on a year in the States.
Nice. Do you feel that your site is actually reaching out to maybe a different or generational community, the Jewish community?
You mean is it multi-generational?
Well, yeah, and because it's the internet, and sometimes older people don't approach that. So I didn't know if you were just picking up a younger audience or a multi-generational audience.
Look, I think it's a misconception that sex is for the young, sex is for the humans. We all find connections to it. So we, I would say probably some of our oldest writers are in their 70s, and some of our youngest writers, we've done, this might sound strange, but we do a lot of children's and teenage programmings. Obviously we make it age appropriate, but life is about relationships. The relationship we have with ourselves, with our friends, family, significant others, with God, if you believe in a higher power, and sexuality and identity are huge elements that I guess build up what that relationship is. So do
you feel like this kind of also brings a younger generation or a generation that's used to kind of the social and political climate that we're in back into the Jewish tradition and learning about their faith and how it interacts with the world as it is today?
Definitely, both through the website and also the workshop that I was mentioning, Sex in the Jewish Tradition. Secular people are floored because a lot of times, and sorry, when I say secular people, we have readers from all faith backgrounds. From we can see on the website the nationalities, what parts of the world people are coming from, Eastern Europe and Latin America and Asia. And I don't know why Jewrotica is interesting to all these people, but Jewrotica has made it all the way around the world. But specifically for secular Jews, I think there's been kind of a really powerful development there that a lot of times, as I was mentioning before, people dismiss what is a religion? What does Judaism have to teach me about sexuality? And then all of a sudden they'll read an article or they'll go to a workshop and they'll be intrigued. For example, there's there was somebody who penned for Jewrotica a blessing on anonymous sexual encounters. And not just a blessing, but taking the story of Jacob wrestling with the angel and using it kind of as a framework for, wrestling with this anonymous stranger in the middle of the night, and may it be a way to, channel the divine within another, and so on and so forth. And so it beckons this question and controversy of, is this modern day Judaism at its best, that everything we do in Judaism, we sanctify? We're not an aesthetic religion to remove ourselves from our surroundings. You have an apple, there's a blessing. You go to the bathroom, there's a blessing. You see a hot person, there's a blessing. Literally, there is a blessing on everything. And so is this the ultimate of Judaism, that now we have a blessing on anonymous hookups? Or is this like blasphemy at its core, that what are we doing to the religion? Mm-hmm. And one of the beauties of Jewrotica is that it's kind of a pluralistic hub and umbrella in a way that provides a platform for multiple voices.
So we've talked a lot about, kind of sexuality in your website. Does it cover issues like for the LGBTQ community or, some of those social realms?
So definitely. So Jewrotica, I guess, just to take a step back and speak about the website again, you can filter based on category, like essay or poetry or erotica. You can filter based on rating. So PG-13, R, XXX, PG. Mm-hmm. But you can also filter based on tags. And so we have tags that are like LGBT, gender identity, gender queer, things mm-hmm. like that. But I'm also very honest in that we are a welcoming platform and we are an inclusive platform, and a lot of powerful writing in all the different genres, the essays, the poetry, the erotica, has been penned. However, I don't think Jewrotica has been as big a breakthrough, I would say, for the Jewish LGBT community than for, the like heterosexual or the mm-hmm. mainstream straight, however you want to phrase it, community, just because that dialogue for the LGBT community has already been out there mm-hmm. through organizations that deal specifically with those subjects. Whereas with the heterosexual community, there's been a lot more silence, taboo, judgment, stricture. So are we inclusive? Yes. Is the content out there? Yes. But is that where we've made our most revolutionary mark? No, because there are already people doing good work in that field.
Awesome answer. Woo.
Thanks.
Yeah. Now I'm sitting here going, wow, that was an amazing answer. And you can't hear me because I'm doing it to the producers here.
Oh. He's really just raising his eyebrows aggressively, like in an excited way.
What?
Like, ooh, cool. Tell me more about that. This is awesome.
This is awesome.
He might even be bouncing in his seat a little.
I try not to bounce because then you'll hear it on the microphone. So I try to chill out quite a bit.
You guys sound like a lot of fun. Oh. I kind of wish I was there with you.
So do we.
When you're in town.
Next time you're on the States, if you're on the left coast, we need to have you by.
For sure. Where do you guys record? Like where are you based?
We're based out of Sacramento, California.
Oh, sweet. All right.
So it's not really close to like LA or San Diego, but it is technically on the same side of the country.
Right. True that.
Well, yeah, Sacramento is further west than LA. So.
Well, I know, but there's a lot of confusion, even in the United States, about the distance between those two states. I think I've had like 10 or 12 people ask me if I'm near San Diego in the year that I've lived here. Mm-hmm. And the answer is, well, that's about 500 miles away, so no.
Well, before I moved to Israel, I actually spent 3.5 years full-time RVing North America. Ooh, so I have been to Sacramento. It is a beautiful place, and God willing, one day I will make it back.
Woo-hoo.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to delve into other aspects. We had some other questions that we talked about before we kicked off. So why don't we take another really quick break, see our sponsors. When we come back, we're probably going to delve in and get a little deeper on a couple of things. Hi, guys. This is Sean Monkey McAney, Monkey for short. You know what? If you're in town here in Sacramento, or if you're anywhere, you need to check out Midtown Moxies. They are a Sacramento burlesque troupe that is blowing my doors off. They are amazing. Generally, they have 2 shows a month. One called the Midtown Moxies and one called Moxie Crush. You need to go to midtownmoxies.com or find them on Facebook. They are amazing. They're beautiful. They're funny as hell. Trust me, I wouldn't be advertising with them if I didn't believe in them. They are freaking fantastic. enough said. Go to midtownmoxies.com. Welcome back. This is Monkey, and I'm sitting here with
Laura.
Miss Laura, and she gives me a cheeky smile. That's fantastic. We have Ayo on the phone. What else did we want to... There's some other aspects that we wanted to delve into, I thought.
So one of the things I want to know is you have this really awesome organization. You do, community outreach events. What if, I want to get involved? Can I do that?
Absolutely. We are always looking for people to write, to facilitate programs, to get involved in social media. Full disclosure, we are a volunteer team, so this isn't going to be your next get-rich-quick opportunity, but you can email us at editor@jewrotica.org or ayo@jewrotica.org, and I am happy to hook anyone up. You don't need to be Jewish. You just need to be cool with Jewish things and people, and for sure reach out. We would love that.
Well, it's oddly, neither will podcasting make us $1 million, so it's kind of similar in that aspect.
Who's in anything for that anyways? That's why you have a regular job and then you do things on the side.
Oh, is that what I'm doing?
I thought. I mean, maybe not.
Maybe
that's
not.
what I'm doing. Whew.
Oh, where were we going next? Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Where are we going next? What else do you want us to know about Jewrotica as an organization or the things that you do?
So that's a good question. It's the reception of the Jewish community has been really interesting because, as I said, there's been kind of a disconnect between the big picture Jewish values and how it actually, makes its mark in the culture itself. So at first, I think the Jewish community was really scared of Jewrotica. I was looked over for opportunities because it's what is this person who used to be a mainstream Jewish educator doing, pioneering the erotic world. But slowly people have turned around. We've partnered with synagogues, we've partnered with Jewish community centers. I'm very aware that there is kind of the impact that we make on a behind closed doors level and the impact that we'll make in terms of what people are willing to admit to. So what people are willing to admit to, we will never make it into the very ultra-Orthodox community because the name itself, the logo itself, it's way too tantalizing and out there. But behind closed doors, I really do think that, so many people have written to us that they no longer feel so ashamed and so alone, and that they feel more validated, and that they understand now that their sexuality is a healthy thing and has a healthy outlet. And so that's been really, really rewarding, just to kind of realize, even if it's on an individual level, it has a ripple effect. And slowly, I hope that it'll, bring people to a more positive place.
Yeah, so I guess one of the questions we still have about Jewrotica that we really haven't touched on is kind of the topic of body positivity. So do you have any kind of services or workshops, or what does Jewrotica do in relation to that kind of social topic?
So I think, one of the things that I spoke about before is just about walking the walk. So just if you were to launch a clothing campaign that you would feature different types of models and different types of, of body shapes and sizes and things like that, because if you actually want to be an inclusive company, then you should be representative of all these different things. So similarly in our writings, on the website, there's not one particular type or way to be. And so, I don't know, I know that's kind of a meta answer, but I would just say the content speaks for itself, and just by providing a voice and a platform for different types of people, different types of bodies. I think there's also in the workshops and the programming themselves, there's this focus not on what you need to be, but on who you are and on what you are and on accepting where you're at and bringing that to the intersection of Jewish values. Because even Judaism itself, there's this one pasuk, there's this one verse in the Bible, and it's v'chai bahem, which means that these commandments that we've been commanded, you're supposed to live by them. And this is the commandment that we learn out to be healthy and not kind of overly focus on skinniness and weight and things like that. But it is an increasing problem in the ultra-Orthodox community, like anorexia, in order to get a match, because there is that whole matchmaking world. It's not just a Fiddler on the Roof thing. So, there's how far we've gotten, and then there's still a long ways for us to go.
Now, Jewrotica.org has, as we've talked about, you have a lot of resources, a lot of classes, you have a lot of literature, and are there other additional, or do you know of other websites that people may be willing to, or find other people and in this space of Jewish sexuality and other resources that they may also be able to use, like maybe literature or other websites?
Yeah, for sure. So for people who are, I would say, hail from more conservative backgrounds, there is Halachically Yours, HALACHICALLY. Halachically, halacha is Jewish ritual law. So halachicallyyours.org. We may have migrated it to a site under Jewlicious.com, so I can shoot you guys the proper resource for that. But that is a guide for religiously observant Jews to discuss intimacy and desire and body image and all of those things. It's a communication guide with their partners. It includes a yes, no, maybe checklist of sexual activities that have been kind of cleared for compatibility with Jewish ritual law. So that's actually a pretty badass resource. In addition to that, there's the Jonathan Mark book on Judaism and sexuality that is highly recommended. And beyond that, I would say we are in the process of creating the literature. Like, Jewrotica is a niche. There are not a lot of resources like that out there, but that's why we're in the middle of building it and creating it. And I guess just to also circle back to the body image question, because I just thought of something that I think is kind of important, is that the best way to promote positive body image, and I'm also a yoga instructor, and I teach something called acro yoga. It's acrobatic partner yoga. And I have found that across the board, the best way to promote positive body image and personal self-confidence is to focus on what your body can do, not just what it looks like the miracle of what it is. And I think that if you're able to kind of have that focus, then that is what leads to healthy self-image, healthy sexuality, because you're not overly focusing on how your body presents to someone else, but you're kind of appreciating the miracle of how it is and what it is. So I don't know. I think all those messages just kind of go together.
Awesome. That sounds like a lot of resources out there.
Oh, yeah.
So kind of taking a step back from all of that, if you were to start over completely with, developing Jewrotica and getting it off the ground, and making these resources available to people, knowing what you know now, having gone through some of those experiences, is there anything you do differently or that you've learned?
Ooh, good question. Well, I don't know if this interests you, but I definitely would have brought other people in on the leadership level sooner. I think a challenge that a lot of independent social innovators and entrepreneurs have is you have this idea and you have all this passion, and so you run with it, but then you become so good at doing it that it's kind of hard to bring other people in. And so Jewrotica is still alive and thriving and publishing regularly, but since I've migrated to Israel, there's been, less of me on the ground in North America to keep pushing ahead the workshops. So I definitely would have established a kind of a more local leadership team at the time. And I don't know, other than that, it's been an incredible learning opportunity. It's been a way to connect with so many different people. I'm grateful for it. It's been a wild ride, but a good one.
So I do have another question here, and this is one that we like to ask here from BCBC. In all your interactions and interviews that you've had through the years about Jewrotica, what's maybe the question or idea that you almost never get? What do you wish people ask you?
That is a good question. I guess people don't really speak so much about what would be the big picture vision, not just for Jewrotica as an organization, but for the impact that it makes on the Jewish community. And for me, I'm much more interested in process than end result. So it almost doesn't matter to me whether people, as a result of Jewrotica, are more or less sexually active and are more or less inclined to pick up a pen and pen their first piece of Jewish erotica. It's about the process. It's about being challenged, having your ideas and how you were raised challenged, seeing your religion and your Jewish culture for what it really is, and understanding, looking at the sources for yourself, not just taking modern culture and dismissing it as not being for you, and really starting the conversation about, well, what is kind of Jewish sexuality? What is Jewish erotica? Because it's almost a conversation about, what is Jewish art? Is Jewish art, art done by Jewish people? Or is it art done by anyone that has, Jewish themes in it? Similarly with Jewishly themed erotica, what does that even mean? It could be something written by a Jewish person, about a birthright trip to Israel or who knows what. Or it could be, a really beautiful piece about the mikveh, about the ritual bath. Because I don't know how familiar you are with it, but Orthodox Jews, we actually separate for half the month. There's no sex, but there's no hugging, there's no holding hands, there's no touching, literally, for almost half the month, every single month. And it's probably one of the hardest parts of the religion, but it's also like this magic reset button on relationships, that you have this kind of new coming together and new honeymoon. And there's a lot of really novel and beautiful ideas that are actually contained within ancient traditions. So a lot of practical application for modern day relationships, I think.
Yeah, I'm sure that actually sounds really great. You almost get some reflection time and some away time, and then you get to appreciate what you have in your relationships when you get back.
For sure. And it's crazy hard, but also if you think about it, like, let's say most couples do fight, and then how do they, okay, yes, there's like hot makeout sex, but how do most couples kind of bridge fights? They're, like hold hands, they hug, they use physical touch, because physical touch is such a powerful tool. Mm-hmm. But let's say it's during that half a month where you don't have physical touch. Think of how much more emotional maturity you need, or you need to really build your other like mental and emotional skill sets to connect on other levels in order to keep the relationship strong. And then, when the second half of the month comes around, you get to the other stuff too.
Okay, I'm going to take us in a slightly different direction now. I do have a question about Judaism and, say, polyamory.
Sure.
Where's the stance on that?
Look, there's a Jewish opinion for anything.
Of course.
There's different denominations, and theoretically, you could find super progressive rabbis that will say, yes, it's fine. But as a general rule, it's frowned upon, because in Judaism, like I said, we're not an aesthetic religion, but it's about taking the beauty of life and sanctifying it through structure. And part of that structure is kind of a committed relationship of two people to one another. So do we address polyamory on the site? Are there writings about it? Yes, totally. But I think the Jewish perspective is that, even putting the Jewish perspective aside, knowing a lot of polyamorous people, that is complicated stuff. And I don't know, maybe the Jewish perspective is just life is complicated enough without trying to have like a 3, 4, 5-way committed romantic relationship. And that maybe you on the one hand, just like love expands with every child that you have, maybe love expands with every lover that you have. But on the other hand, as life goes on, you got to prioritize, and there's always going to be a limited amount of time and a limited amount of everything. And to be able to know that hands down you are someone's first and only priority, I think that leads to a greater chance at relationship success than kind of maybe more of the other flavorful options. And I think that's Judaism's perspective as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, definitely. Time is the one element that we all can't get away from. So, yeah, scheduling time and everything else that goes along with that between work and relationships and life-work balance type of stuff is very important to me, and I know to a lot of people that listen to the show. So, Ayo, we're going to take one more break.
Okay.
And when we come back, we'll kind of start wrapping it up and see what else we have to talk about.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back after this.
Perfect.
Hi guys, this is Sean Monkey McEnany, Monkey for short. What you need to know now is that brown chicken, brown cow needs your love. It needs your help, and personally, we could use your money. But short of that, what you need to do is go out and like our Facebook page. Number 2, give us a review on whatever podcast ability you have. Go out to iTunes, go out to Google Play, give us a good review because that helps. Number 3, subscribe. Subscribe to our podcast because that helps our numbers, helps us with advertisers, helps us with everything. It makes us look good, actually. And number 4, and this is very important, come close to the speaker. It's fantastic. You can go out to Patreon and support us on Patreon. That's patreon.com/BCBC-Podcast. You can support us at whatever level of support you think you can manage. I don't want you to give us money if you can't do it, but I want you to give us some money and we'll give you back some love as well. We'll give you back some stuff. We'll talk about you on the radio. Who knows? But in the end, supporting us helps keep the show going. Subscribing to the podcast gives us better numbers. And liking our Facebook page, guess what? You always know when the show's coming. So, this is Monkey. You're you. We are together. Cuckoo, cuckoo, fantastic. See you on the next show. Welcome back. This is Monkey. You're listening to Brown Chicken, Brown Cow. That is
Laura.
Hi, Laura. Ayo, I am coming back to you. We're going to wrap it up here real quick, but I just have a couple real quick questions. One of them, do you consider this an act of tikkun? Is that
like tikkun olam?
Yes.
Hey, I did not know you knew our lingo. So yes, yeah. So tikkun is a fixing. It's the idea that the world is a broken place, and that it's our job to do our fixings to make it a little bit better. And yes, I think there's a lot of trauma, a lot of shame surrounding the topic of sexuality, both for the Jewish community and also just worldwide for human beings. And by fostering these conversations, there's a huge healing process that really gets ignited by it. So tikkun all the way, for sure.
In that case, I'm very proud and happy to be part of the tikkun process with our show. See, I pulled it in. See what I did there? No one's talking to me. Everybody's just looking at me funny.
We're just staring at you over here. No, hopefully we'll be able to kind of spread the word about your organization, and more people will know when they listen to our podcast.
Yeah, I would love that. You guys are, whether under pen names, real names, you are invited to write, you are invited to, join the team, all that stuff. That'd be great.
Any last questions?
Yeah. Any last thoughts from you?
Yeah, actually, maybe a combination of a thought and a question.
Okay.
A lot of times people ask, is there anything that we won't publish? And that has been, that's been like a really interesting, challenging thing, because on the one hand, we want to put everything out there and just kind of let people respond to it.
Right.
And on the other hand, we want to be respectful. And so for example, there was one piece that was of a Jewish guy basically having sex with a German woman, and he's like playing this whole recording. There's all these thoughts going on in his mind that are like post World War II and Holocaust trauma as he's having sex with this woman. It's really, like, pardon my language, it's some really fucked up stuff, and she has no idea. And so it kind of like calls forth these questions of like, okay, consent. Well, she was physically consenting, but she had no idea of this kind of emotional aggression going on in his head. And like, maybe that's like way too dark and heavy a note for me to have even brought up during the last few minutes. But it's a really interesting question of what, if anything, is too much. And I'd be really interested in hearing your thoughts on that, of like, where, if at all, would you draw the line on publishing something as a Jewrotica editor? And we do have trigger warnings and stuff, but still, what do you guys think?
I think that's why you have that ability to kind of separate your website by rating, which, by the way, is an awesome idea, where you can kind of look at like the PG, the PG-13, and then all the way up to like, XXX rated.
And all the tags and everything, yeah.
Like, I think that's why you have tags, and I assume that if I was an editor and I was reviewing stuff, I would know at what point things would be too far, or something I wouldn't want to publish. But I can't think of anything automatically off the top of my head.
Well,
is that bad?
No. I've published a few things, and including this produce this program. And I know that you have to be a gatekeeper at some point, right? Understand your community, understand what your purpose, understand your idea. So yeah, absolutely. I would be looking to protect, to a certain extent, understand, and you have to have that understanding of the community in order to have an idea how they're going to react, have an idea how, vehemently people are going to be coming back on this. So yeah, absolutely. I would definitely have a gatekeeper's mind on for certain things. But at the same time, I wouldn't be doing that in a vacuum. I like to be able to bounce things off the other editors.
For sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Food for thought.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and wrap it up. That's a great question, by the way. Thank you for bringing that one. This is Monkey Mackany.
And I'm Laura, and this is the Brown Chicken Brown Cow Show, and we've been talking to Ayo at Jewrotica.org.
Woohoo! Woohoo! Thanks, guys. This was fun.
Yeah, we hope to have you back on again, and I'll reach out to you if we have a topic that I know you can nail.
People want to reach her for questions?
And if people want to reach you for questions, one more time, where can they find you?
Editor at Jewrotica.org.
Beautiful. We're out.
For information on becoming a sponsor, advertising with us, or becoming a guest on our show, visit us at brownchickenbrowncowshow.com. All material in the show is copyrighted 2017 by the Brown Chicken Brown Cow Show and Podcast and Marry You Creative Solutions. All rights are reserved.
Brown chicken, brown cow. 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 This is fun. Brown chicken, brown cow. Brown chicken, brown cow.